Okay, well, good morning, everybody out there in TV land, and we're happy to have you join us for our Wednesday class, sponsored by Livona chapter of Hadassah Women in Israel. And we are going to be learning today Sefer Shmuel, chapter 17. And I'd like to thank Rhoda Mark for sponsoring class today in loving memory of her mother, Fega Bat Moshe Yehuda. And we appreciate the beautiful and words she shared with us before the recording about her mother and her mother's dream about Israel and her mother and father's tireless work in raising tzedakah for Eretz Israel. So we thank Rhoda very much for her sponsorship today. And anyone who would like to sponsor the class can contact me or Xenia Cohen to let us know that you would like to um, share uh, your tzedakah with us that goes directly to Hadassah Hospital in memory and honor, whatever the occasion may be. So we thank you very much, and we're going to get started. This morning, probably very interesting situation going on in New York City, as many of you follow along the political machinations in the world. I'm telling you, we seem to be reliving the Bible over and over and over again with good and evil. And today is not a happy day with the projected winner of New York City's mayor, as I call him, Kami Mandani, whatever his name is. And I, I somehow kind of feel that it's all in the scheme of God. It's all in the hands of God. And we are just reliving and reworking all the things that happen in Tanakh. It just seems amazing. And today, as we learn about David fighting evil Goliath, and then we are going to compare and contrast the brothers of Yosef with the brothers of David, and each of these two heroes, Yosef and David, will find that these stories in our history are very, very telling about us, about the times that they lived in and we live in, and about what God requires of us. So let's get started. And I just want to is anyone able to give me a bit of a review? Do you remember what we discussed last week and talked about in terms of um, David becoming a rising star, basically, and um, uh, kind of taking charge and taking over some of the kingly things that Shaul is no longer capable of. Is there anyone who can give us a bit of a summary?
No, Rhonda, I can't really give a summary, but I was listening to the class and I thought about this and didn't mention it last week, but it stuck with me. When Shmuel first goes to find who the king is going to be, and he goes to Yishai, and Yishai says he has seven sons. And finally, at the end, they realize there's little David running around. And then when he goes to the chapter that we just discussed last week, he talks about Yishai's eight sons. So it was interesting to me that, like, David, now that he's king, like Yishai is like, oh, I have eight sons now. My son is the king, and he kind of like he considered David to be his son after that. I just thought it was interesting that it was 7 and 1, and then he talked about the 8 sons after that.
Yeah, parents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When you
there.
become king, I'll claim you.
Right. Many of us go through life and our parents have good things to say about us and not good things. Uh, You know, um, there are a lot of midrash about why the relationship between David and Jesse, Yishai, was strained or difficult. Also, why, and we're going to learn this in a few chapters after this, why the relationship between David and the people, he waits a long time to announce that reveal that he's been anointed king. And the people, while they love him as a hero of the giant slayer, the military hero that he is, they are somewhat reluctant to look at him as king material. Why? Because his great grandmother, who is
Ruth.
Ruth, was a Moabite, and there's a prohibition against marrying Moabites. However, the Mepharshim say that in that day and time, it was a misinterpreted law, that the law was not that you shouldn't marry a Moabite woman, that your daughter should not marry a Moabite man. And so there was a real machlokus with whether he was legitimate enough to be the king, whether he was really a Jew, and whether he was had the yichus basically to be the king. So there's a lot, and there's a lot between Yishai and his wife, and there's midrashim that he and his wife had separated, and this was and when they got back together, it was a little challenging. There's all kinds of stuff that people find in the midrash about the birth of David. So we have to just, I as you well know, many of you know, after years of being with me, I kind of put aside the midrashim because a lot of times it becomes confusing to the text, and it really means that someone has made up a story to try and prove a point. It's like taking a button and sewing a vest around it. You kind of weave something that isn't really it's kind of made up. Anyway, so I try and stay away from the discussions about David's lineage and his relationship with his father, and I just attribute it to just everybody, every parent, every child has issues. That's all. They just do. And I think we don't really, there's no place in Jewish history, written Jewish history, that we really learn the details. So we have to be very careful what we are ascribing to each one of them. In fact, I've mentioned that I'm watching this series on television about David, and I'm telling you, the editorial license that they have used to create stories within stories, and it's not even close to midrash. I'm telling you, what they have Hollywoodized, these stories is beyond belief. So we have to be careful about what we extract from the text and what we extract from midrash. So, okay, so here we have the story in a nutshell of David. He is the shepherd boy of the and youngest son of the family of Yishai, and the mother is Nitzevet, And we find that the brothers all have positions in the army of Shaul, and they're more it's a more of a seems to be a military family, and David is kind of pushed out to the fields where he is singing on his harp to the sheep and the goats and taking care of the flocks. So we find that Shaul, after David is anointed king in secret by Shmuel, loses his Ruach HaKodesh. He loses his ability to think straight. He is tormented by evil spirits of and really depression. He is having a very difficult time ruling Israel in a rational way. And certainly because he's depressed and because he realizes that he will not have the kingship continue in his family with his son Yonatan, he cannot function as the king. And so God brings in characters of help to Shaul to show that there is going to be a change in leadership. And little by little, we see that David is placed at the right time and at the right place to take on some of these situations that really Shaul was should be taking charge. For example, Shaul as king is really the head of the army, and Shaul, in the valley of Elah, as they are standing facing Goliath, should have been the one to go out and slay the giant because he was king. And the situation was such that he was so afraid to even attempt to go out to fight against the Plishtim that he allowed the conflict to continue day in and day out. And Goliath would come every day out into the valley, and he would yell to the Israelites, "You are the servants of Shaul. You are not free men. Your God is not a God. He's afraid to even have anyone come out and fight me." And he really understood the Plishtim, and the Israelites were um, possibly well matched in terms of numbers, but don't forget that this was the age, the Bronze Age of history, and bronze was being introduced into weapons, and the Bronze Age was slowly turning into the Iron Age, where things were made of iron, and that meant the heads of arrows, the swords, the spears, the implements for war. And it's important for us to know this because the Plishtim cornered the market on iron and bronze, and they actually didn't allow the sale of the this precious metal to the Israelites. If the Israelites had any implements made out of bronze and iron for their farming implements, they would have to go to the Plishtim to have the Plishtim sharpen them or repair them, because nowhere in Israel was the capacity to make iron or bronze, nor did they have the homer, the material in which to make these implements of war themselves. So, and certainly the Plishtim were not going to sell the Israelites swords, spears, etc., made out of these metals. So they had an upper leg, so to speak, on the fighting and armaments of the times, and they were far, far ahead of the Israelites. So when they saw that the two armies were pretty much matched man for man, the only thing that they reasoned was that it would be a bloody, bloody battle between the two armies. And even though the Plish team felt that they would be the winners of the battle, they thought it was unnecessary to go through that bloodbath of the Israelites. So this Goliath comes out. He is their Trojan horse, so to speak. He comes out every day, taunts the Jews during the time that they're supposedly davening 3 times a day, mocking God, belittling the God of Israel. Where's your God? If he's so powerful, why hasn't he sent anyone to come fight me? This taunting over and over diminished Shaul's ability to make a decision about what he had to do for the war effort here. And he was not going himself. So the story, we always say there's some storyline that's almost bashert. So here's David. He's not allowed to go to the war effort to fight, which he wanted to do in the first place, as his brothers had been recruited to go fight. So he's still out in the field. Well, his brothers are now on the in the army with Shaul, waiting for some decision to be made. And meanwhile, the army is using up supplies. They have food, material, etc., whatever they used in armies for keeping the men fed and clothed and what housed, etc. So Yishai says to David, take this package. He has a big shipment, basically, of food and things, and he says, take this to your brothers on the front line, because and give it to Shaul's army. So this is the vehicle. This army needing supplies is a vehicle to get David out of the fields with his flocks and to the army front line in the valley of Elah. So David does that. He goes, takes whatever he's given by his father, and he's happy to do this because now he gets to see the battle or the confrontation or the conflict up close and personal. When he arrives to the battlefield looking for his brothers to deliver the packages, what does he see or hear? He hears this huge giant taunting and mocking and ridiculing the Israelite army and the king and everyone, all the Jews. And David says to whoever he bumps into, what's going on? He wanted to have an understanding of what was happening with this very loud, very big person from the Plish team. And he finds out that the Goliath is doing this every single day, and nobody is stepping up to fight him because all he says is, send me somebody, a warrior and a soldier to fight me. That's all it takes, one person to fight, and that the battle will be won. Goliath says, look, if if I win, if I prevail over the person who comes out to slay me, then you will become our servants. And if you send the warrior out and he wins, then we will become your slaves and servants. Well, David hears this and he makes the decision that he's going to step up to the plate. And Shaul once again says, is there anybody amongst you who will fight the Goliath, the giant? And David says, I will. he has no hesitation. He says, God will be with me because I'm on the right side. So we hear from the very beginning that God is with David, and David knows that God is with him. And David and God have a very amazing kesher between them, a connection. So David is brought to Shaul, and Shaul says, you little shepherd boy, you're going to be fighting against Goliath," because he couldn't comprehend that someone would be stepping up to do this, because Shaul is so afraid. He's so afraid to be king, to be the leader of the army. He has no confidence in himself any longer. He has no abilities to make rational decisions anymore. And so consequently, he's shocked that this child is going to go out. And while the brothers seem to be protective of David and say, no, 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 don't let him go out. He's just a boy, a lad. The king said, no, he volunteered. He's the one. So Shaul was not hesitant to send this young boy out to the field to fight. We see that he arms him. He puts the armaments and whatever they had to give him, and David is uncomfortable with that. He feels and he takes it off, and he says, God will be with me. And he takes the stones and his slingshot, and he goes out to confront Goliath. And we know the rest of the story. David is successful, he wins, and the people of Israel are basically saved from becoming the servants or a bloodbath by the Plish team. The Plish team go back to wherever, to Gaza and Gat and Ekron, etc. And David is brought back to the house of Shaul as a hero, and he is promised that Michal will be given to him. Shaul's daughter will be given to him as a wife, and he will be announced as the arms bearer for the king. So, so we
I
have
have
this.
a que-
Yeah.
I
Any
have a
questions or comments?
I, with all this, the way what Shaul was thinking of David. At that point, was David already um, singing to him to help him with his
Yes,
um,
yes,
but
yes.
really did know him. He
Well,
knew
yeah,
David.
you know, it's a very interesting thing because he is in such a confused state, Shaul, that he says, "Who is this boy? Who is this lad?" And when they tell him, it it doesn't ring a bell that he's the guy who's been playing the harp for him for who knows how long. Uh, and it is very confusing. You're right. It is very confusing. But the commentators seem to feel that Shaul wasn't thinking clearly, and he couldn't really comprehend that this same child boy would be the same one to come out and fight Goliath, and and maybe the question wasn't who is he, like what's his name and his address, but who is this guy, like who is this kid who thinks he's going to be able to step up and fight against them. There's two ways of saying who is this, so we're not really sure exactly what Shaul had in mind, or whether he was not lucid at the moment. So it's very hard to understand.
Okay, thank you.
Any other people, comments, questions? Because now we're going to go and we're going to take a look we're going to stop here because this is where I believe is a good point to stop. David has become a hero to the Jewish people and to Israel. And the story of David and his brothers has some very interesting similarities to the story of Yosef and his brothers. So let's take a look at some of the things. Yeah, did someone say something? So let's take a look. Um, and I have some I'm going to put some things up on the screen, and we're going to see whether we can see whether any of this is relevant or not. You might say, well, it's just not. I might say it is. Okay. So let's see here. Okay, so we talked about Goliath and his contempt for Bnei Israel and the God of Israel. And let's go to David and his brothers. Okay, so what we find here, I'm going to have some of you read some of this so that everyone can participate. Let's talk about the relationship between David and his brothers and Yosef and his brothers. And we're going to begin here. Does somebody want to read here? The commentation, the Pesukim in red are from Bereshit, are about Yosef, and the Pesukim in black from Shmuel are about David. So, do I have a reader?
I'll read.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, both stories opened with the absence of the older brothers from their home.
Okay. So,
Okay, so now from
so
Bereshit.
both boys, both Yosef and David, are not home. Okay. Where are they? Let's find out. Go ahead.
And the brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem.
All right. So we found that in Yosef's story, the brothers are going to the flock in Shechem. Go ahead.
And the three eldest sons of Yishai had gone after Shaul to the battle.
Okay. And the sons of Yishai are not home. They went to war. But where is David? David is with the flock. Okay. All right. Now, go ahead.
In both episodes, the father sends his younger son to see how his older brothers are faring.
All right, we know that in Yosef, they're supposedly tending the sheep, and Yosef is sent by his father to see how the brothers are doing. Don't forget, Yosef is the youngest son and the favorite of Yaakov. Um, David is the youngest son, but at the moment, not the favorite at all of Yishai. Go ahead.
And he said to him, Go, I pray you, see whether it will be well with your brothers and well with the flocks.
All right. So Yaakov is telling Yosef to go and take care of finding out whether his brothers are okay out in the fields. Okay. And here.
And Yishai said unto David his son, Take now for your brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and to your brethren shall you bring greetings.
Okay. So each of the fathers want to know how the brothers are doing. Um, uh, in some way, the fathers are concerned about the the situation that their boys are in. Okay, here we go.
Okay. The younger brother is a shepherd.
All right, so both, go ahead.
Yosef, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren.
Okay,
Now David went to and fro from Shaul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem.
okay. So we know that both of them, were helping in some way with the flocks. All right, go ahead.
Doesn't say how old David is.
No, it doesn't, but they refer to him as a lad, so he's young.
Teenager, yeah, okay. In both cases, the brothers respond harshly to their younger brother, who came to seek out
It's
their
one
worship.
of Hadass and her husband.
Okay, is that Lori? Lori?
That's
I took it because I wanted to see but I'm gonna give it to you to throw.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
Lori.
No, go ahead.
Of, of course, the reaction of Yosef's brothers is much harsher. Okay.
Okay,
They said to one another, "Behold, this dreamer comes. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him and cast him into some pit, and we will say, an evil beast has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams."
okay. Yeah.
Right.
So the interesting thing is the brothers respond harshly to the youngest brother who comes to visit them, but the Yosef's brothers, because of Yosef's constant taunting, that he is in some way superior with his dreams, and the wheat is going to bow down, and the sun and the moon and the stars are going to bow down. The stars are going to bow down to the sun. He is constantly, as we, like poking the bear. Yosef is taunting his brothers all the time and creating a sense of jealousy and very difficult relationships within the household. But here, Eliav, who is the oldest and is somewhat angry against David's, go ahead, continue reading here.
And Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, "Why are you come down? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your presumptuousness and the naughtiness of your heart, for you came down that you might see the battle."
So Eliav, who being the oldest, seems to be overlooked as some hero or some major representative of the Yishai family. And David wants to be part of the battle. He has always said, why do I have to take care of the sheep? Why can't I go to the battle as well? Why can't I represent my family as well? I want to be part of this. And he was always kept at home by his father. So Eliav feels that David has taken the opportunity to come to the war to bring whatever he's bringing, the package from his father, to usurp Eliav's stature of representing the family, whereas the brothers in Yosef see Yosef coming to see how they're doing as being better than them and taunting them. So in each case, somehow the brothers feel that the youngest brother has come to make them feel bad.
Right.
WhatsApp audio.
I
Uh,
can't.
hello?
Yeah, that I just hung
Oh,
up.
okay. Okay. So, you want to read this?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Battle. This response involves a twofold distortion. First, David never abandoned his flocks, but rather, as is stated several verses earlier, and he left the sheep with a keeper. Second, David came on his father's mission and not to see the battle.
Okay. So here the Mepharshim are trying to show that David really wasn't arrogant, that he was just doing what his father told him, even though we know that he really volunteers and he wants to become part of the army. He's not doing it in any kind of arrogant way as Yosef had done with his brothers. Okay? Go ahead.
Okay. In the end, the two missions end in a close relationship with the king, which ultimately leads to marriage.
Okay, so we find that Pharaoh is going to give Potiphar's daughter to Yosef for coming up with a solution for the 7 years of famine. Uh, oh, see here. Uh, okay, and uh, we have to. Can we mute? Okay, so and then we find that Shaul gives Michal to whoever will fight Goliath. Okay, so in each relationship here, Paro and Yosef, David and Shaul, they each get married. Yay! I mean, uh, this is only one of the rewards for each of their outstanding jobs that they're doing. Go ahead. Let's finish what we have here.
The close connection to the king also finds expression in the distinguished standing that is achieved in the highest echelons of the regime.
Okay. So let's find out what that means. Go ahead.
And Yosef went out over all the land of Egypt. And Yosef went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt.
Okay.
And he made him captain over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. But all Israel and Yehuda loved David, for he went out and came in before them.
Okay, so in each case, the boys, Yosef gets the position of overseer. He's right-hand man to Paro, and we know that this kind of ambition was something that Yosef really wanted. He's wanted this because for years he was the beloved of his father Yaakov. He felt he was possibly better than his brothers because he was showered with the affection and the coat of many colors. And he was in a very, and through his dreams, he was very ambitious in what he saw himself become. Now, go ahead with David. He is appointed to captain over. It says over the 1,000, and this is something that he wasn't interested in. He was not looking for this. We don't find any of this ambition, as in Yosef with David, not at all. And so the two are in many ways very, very different. Their situations may be similar, but their personalities are very different. Go ahead.
In addition to the parallels in the substance of the story, there are also unique parallels in the descriptions of Yosef and David. These are the only two individuals described by scriptures as Navon, which means discerning or prudent.
Okay. And let's see how that plays out. Go ahead.
And Pharaoh said to Yosef, since Hashem has shown you all this, there is none so discerning, Navon, and wise as you are.
Okay. So he's referring to the dreams that he has interpreted for Paro. Okay, and here in David.
Then answered one of the young men and said, Behold, I have seen a son of Yishai the Bethlehemite that is skillful in playing, and a mighty man of valor, and a man of war, and prudent, Navon, in affairs, and a comely person.
Okay, so here uh it's very interesting that they talk about this, because this is the description that one of the servants of Shaul says to uh Shaul's closest advisors in getting him a musician to play and calm his nerves. This is what was said about David, that David was a wonderful, skillful musician, and he adds to it, because this is before Goliath, the battle with Goliath. It says a mighty man of valor. Well, there was no evidence that he was a mighty man of valor. He was only a kid who was taking care of a flock, and a man of war, which he had not been prior to Goliath. And he is prudent, and he is attractive. Okay. So this was all added to David's resume by the servant who wanted him to be the musician for Shaul. Later on, we find out he was a mighty man of valor, and that he was an unbelievable warrior, and he was wise in many instances that we see throughout the story of his kingship. However, none of this was really known except that he was able to play the harp. But in Yosef's case, he proves himself right away to Paro by interpreting the dreams with God's help. Okay.
You think he was prudent with his women and affairs? Because I mean,
I don't
think
know why it's making that noise.
Um, okay, hold on. Okay, go ahead. You have a question about
yeah,
his?
Yosef was prudent in his affair with not affairs, but his what with women, whereas I don't think David was, and it says he was prudent. He was navon in affairs. Does they mean affairs of
Of
the
state.
spirit
I
or
think of state,
affairs of state?
not
Got it. Okay,
possibly not the affairs of the heart.
got it. Okay.
But that's a good question. That the commentators often disagree about whether or not he was prudent in his affairs of the heart. As we know, he was quite the ladies' man, and he took on many wives. But that's for another story. Okay. So, so I think this is
Well,
commentary.
they covered it because the last two words there, and he was a comely person. So,
Right.
okay, they covered it. He was gorgeous looking.
Yeah, he was good looking. Yeah. Vid David Yafet Anaim, Hu Roeh Bashoshanim.
Uh-huh.
All right. Let's see. He comely person. Okay, here. Go ahead.
These are also the only two males in scripture described as Yafeh Mar'eh, handsome of fair countenance.
Okay.
Yosef was a good-looking person and of a fair countenance. Yafeh Mar'eh.
Okay.
And when the Plishti looked about and saw David, he disdained them, for he was but a youth and ruddy, and withal of a fair countenance, Yafeh Mar'eh.
Okay. So we have some good looking guys here, and uh they are seemingly attractive. Now, are are these compare and contrast kind of things between the brothers have any relationship to each other? Well, I'm going to tell you that if you were to ask me, I would say that there's not as much in common as there are not in common. And what do I mean by that? Well, for example, David's mission ends with Israel's deliverance from the hands of the Plishtim, and Yosef's mission ends with his ultimate sale by his brothers, and he goes down to Egypt, and he really saves Egypt. So David is saving the Bnei Israel, and um, Yosef is saving the Mitzrayim. I think that's a very interesting thing, that Yosef's mission, where he actually goes down to Egypt, is a means to an end to reunite himself with his brothers. David's situation is to bring him down to the battlefield so he will be reunited with his brothers. So in that situation, they both have some similarities. But prior to that, I'm not so sure. And then we also find that during the time that David is shown to us so far, David always puts God's name in the conversation. He always says, with God's help, with the help of Hashem, with God, God is with me. God is with the Bnei Israel. And David is a very, very spiritual person from the get-go, from right away. Whereas Yosef, we often saw him talking about himself and all the things that he has either accomplished or wants to accomplish. And so he is quite self-centered. And it isn't until he is thrown into prison by Potiphar, by the him having some difficulties in a relationship with Potiphar's wife. It isn't until he is in jail that he calls upon God and realizes that without God's help, his life may end in this prison. And certainly he feels that it isn't where he is destined to be. So his turning point is in prison, whereas with David, David has God by his side all the time. He has God in his thoughts all the time. And I think that these two, that is very, very significant when we talk about David, because we often look at David's big mistake with Bathsheba, and we focus on that one point of what he did. And I'm not condoning it, but I'm just saying that one thing that he did that we find disdainful, and we say, how could that be? How could that be? But we don't forget that David apologizes for this, and he really is sorry for what he has done. Whereas many of the other heroes we find don't say they're sorry to God. So also the same another thing that is very similar to the two, Yosef and David, is that both of them are stripped of their clothing. Yosef is given the king's ring. He's given a new set of clothing to represent himself as the king's second in command. And he is given all the physical trappings of power by Paro. And what happens after David has slain the Goliath? he is also well, before he goes out, he is given the armor of Shaul to wear, to go out into the field to confront Goliath. And what does David do? He doesn't want that the trappings of safety and power. And what does he say? I'm going out to represent my king, and my king is God. And so consequently, Yosef enjoys the trappings of power, whereas David throws them away and strips himself of what Shaul has given to him. And let me show you the psukim that I think are interesting for that as well. Okay. Susan, you want to read this?
And they stripped Yosef of his coat, the striped coat that was on him. In contrast, when Shaul dresses David in his battle gear, David does not feel comfortable in them, and on his own initiative removes them and puts back on his own more humble clothing.
Right. So I think this is indicative of the two personalities of the boys. And here it says, go ahead.
And Shaul clad David with his apparel, and he put a helmet of brass upon his head, and he clad him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his apparel, and he essayed to go, but could not, for he had not tried it. And David said unto Shaul, I cannot go with these, for I have not tried them. And David put them off him.
Okay. So that's one thing that's very indicative of the difference between David and Shaul. Then we also learn that Yosef's brothers come to him, and David's brothers, David goes to his brothers. Again, a difference of the two different characters here in each story. And it also seems that David is much more modest and much more has much more humility in his interpersonal relationships than does Yosef. And I think that's a stark reminder of the two, and what caused the friction in the first place. And David has no difficulty expressing his faith in God in front of anyone. And from the very beginning, he is a faithful servant of God. And Yosef, again, does not seem to bring God into the equation until he's in prison. Again, another difference between the two of them. So I think that the contrast between the two, while they both have stories, both have brotherly stories. I think that the challenge here to finding a lot of the same kinds of qualities maybe doesn't really work as well as in other stories, where comparing and contrasting is more readily visible. So I think that while we are able to see some things that are maybe similar, what gets them, they're both shepherds, they both have brothers, they both have a mission to accomplish, they both have enemies to fight, they also have families to rectify. I think maybe that's basically where it ends, and that's what can get from the story of David and the story of Yosef. Do you have any questions or any comments?
No.
Nope. Okay. So what we can do now for the next few minutes, if you want, we can either end class a little early or we can start for the next chapter. What would you like to do?
I think we should end early.
Okay. Okay. Not a problem. All right. So let's